Ladies and gentlemen, now comes a surprise visit from one of the screen's most charming young comedians, Miss Una Merkel.
Well, thank you, honey. My, but you certainly do have a nice place here for your broadcasting. I never saw such a charming place. These lovely drapes and such good-looking boys and your orchestra and such shiny instruments and all those lovely microphones and everything. And the stage manager was just so sweet to me when I came in. It just reminded me of home. Honestly, it's all so nice it just leaves me speechless.
Yes, well,
Well, I'm not one for talking, Bob, but I just can't help asking you just one question. Why do you suppose all those lovely people applauded when I walked out here?
Why did they applaud? Don't be so modest, Una. They applaud because you're Una Merkel, the picture actress.
All that clapping just because I'm Una Merkel?
Oh, certainly.
Oh, shush, Bob Taylor. I bet you they'd clap just as hard if Greta Garbo walked out here.
Well, it's good to see you again, Una. I've missed you around the lot for the last few weeks. Where have you been?
Well, I'm sort of in between pictures right now, Bob.
Oh, I see. Having a nice rest, huh?
Uh-huh. Except that while I'm resting, I'm not exactly resting. You want to know a secret? Well, I'm doing a little magazine work in my spare time.
Magazine work? You mean writing articles?
Yes, isn't it thrilling?
Well, I guess it is, yes. Are you being pretty successful?
Well, I'm holding my own, Bob. By that I mean I send the editors just as much as they send back.
Well, you can't lose anything that way, can you?
Well, that's what I really wanted to ask you about. I've written a little article about you.
You have, Una?
Uh-huh. And I'd kind of like to get your okay on it, because then I could send the stuff right in.
Well, I'd be glad to do anything I can, Una.
Well, I guess I'd better read it to you, honey. It's called The Real Robert Taylor.
The Real Robert Taylor. That's very good.
Oh, do you think so? Well, here goes. The Real Robert Taylor by Una Merkel. When I arrived at the attractive home of Robert Taylor, the sun was streaming in through the patio. My whole body was tingling with a sensation of expectancy, and I can't ever remember feeling better in my life. This grand feeling was partly due to the fact that I had arisen early on this bright, sunshiny morning, and on my favorite sorrel stallion Rex had gone for a canter through the Hollywood Hills. After this glorious exercise, I returned to my home and slipped on a bathing suit for a refreshing plunge in my gorgeous tile pool. My appetite sharpened.
Excuse me, Una.
What is it, honey?
Is this the article you're writing about me?
Yes, the real Robert Taylor.
The Real Robert Taylor. Well, go on.
My appetite sharpened, I dashed into my kitchen and prepared the southern breakfast, which has made me the envy of every Hollywood hostess. This breakfast consists of honest use, ham and eggs, toast, and coffee. Well, how's the article so far, Bob? Does it meet with your approval?
Well, don't you think it's a little personal?
Oh, Bob, no. They just love to read those little intimate things. They want to know the real you.
Oh, yes, the Real Robert Taylor. Well, you go right ahead. Now, let me hear the rest of it.
Surely. So naturally, when I arrived at Robert Taylor's house, I was in very good spirits. Before ringing the doorbell, I glanced at myself in the small mirror of my handbag, which is one of those new alligator Schiaparelli models, very stylish. And I noted the high color in my cheeks. I thought I looked very becoming in my new white fox fur piece. On leaving the house that morning, I decided that my white fox fur was the right thing to wear. Nothing else would do, absolutely nothing, so that's what I wore.
Yeah, is that all?
Oh, don't be silly. I had a dress on, too.
Excuse me.
Now, let me see. Where was I?
You were ringing the doorbell, the Real Robert Taylor's doorbell.
Oh, yes. Well, I rang the doorbell, and while waiting for somebody to answer, I glanced about the spacious grounds of Robert Taylor's valley home.
Now we're getting somewhere.
I was instantly struck by the strong resemblance of the place to the old colonial home where I was raised in Chattanooga.
We're heading south again.
When I was a child, we lived in a white frame mansion with my grandfather's tables flanking the left wing. I can never erase the picture of grooms currying those high-strung horses.
You really caught my personality, Una. Go ahead. The Real Robert Taylor.
Yes. Oh, say, I forgot to tell you. This article will be illustrated with some lovely informal photographs.
Oh, that's nice. Where did you get any informal photographs of me?
Oh, they're not of you, Bob. They're pictures of me.
The Real Robert Taylor with pictures of you.
Oh, well, don't forget, darling, they were taken outside of your house.
Oh, well, that's different. Oh, sure. Well, let's hear the rest of this article.
I'm awfully glad you're so interested, and your fans will just love this little peep at you behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes? You've got me behind the 8-ball.
Yes, isn't it cute? Well, now let me finish. After I rang Mr. Taylor's doorbell, I waited for about 10 minutes and nobody answered, so I climbed into my yellow roadster and headed for the tennis club. I thought a couple of sets of tennis would be just what I...
Wait a minute, Una. Don't you think you've got a little too much about me in that story?
Oh, don't you worry about that, Bob. They'll edit it.
Oh, well, that's all right then. They'll take care of that.
Well, of course they will. What do you think of it honestly now, Bob?
Well, I think it's wonderful. Do you know something, Una?
What, honey?
You've given me a real inspiration. I'm going to write my autobiography.
The story of your life? Well, that's grand, Bob. What are you going to call it?
The Real Una Merkel. You know, Ted, last week when I was shooting the final scenes of The Three Comrades, I still found time to hear good news. At about the time you were inviting everybody to have a cup of Maxwell House coffee, I was having my own cup of Maxwell House coffee with my dinner in the dressing room. Kind of made me think of you all here.
Well, Robert, we sure missed you, and we're mighty glad you're back. It's time right now for that same pleasant custom of ours. Visit to the old Maxwell House for a steaming, fragrant cup of the coffee that buoys you up and never lets you down. Swing along with us, Meredith. We pause now for station identification.
This is KFI, Los Angeles.
I remember when I was a little gent, long before Una Merkel became a fan magazine writer, a song wasn't a hit unless it stayed on top for a long time, at least a year or so. But lately, any song that survives after a couple of months has to be a real sensation, and there aren't many of them. One of the few that seem destined to live is Cole Porter's Night and Day. After having been bandied about for the past 8 or 9 years by orchestras and singers, it's still about 50 years ahead of its time. We hear it now in the very special Meredith Willson style, Night and Day. Pick it up from there, Mr. Wilson.